Hey, what's up, everybody? It's been a little while since there's been any interesting news in this case. Last thing we had heard, what was it, several days ago, a week ago, there was the video footage from the residence, and that was the residence that Arbery was in on the day of the event. But the footage was from the past. It was several months ago, I believe, late last year, and it wasn't clear as to who the individual was that was in the residence that particular evening. Perhaps a lot of you have seen that footage. So now we have new details. And when I was talking about this, a week ago, 10 days ago, the GBI was talking about future prosecutions or future arrests being made. And I was wondering who? I mean, who else besides these three individuals involved? Obviously, only the McMichaels had been arrested at that time, but I guess now we know who they had in mind. So, man who recorded the fatal shooting of Ahmaud Arbery has been arrested, GBI says. Let's read it real quick and then I'll kind of give my thoughts on kind of each side of things, like what the prosecution could be thinking here and what the defense has to be thinking. William Roddy Bryan Jr., the man who recorded the fatal shooting of Ahmaud Arbery in a neighborhood outside Brunswick, Georgia, has been arrested on suspicion of murder. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation said on Thursday, it's GBI. Bryan witnessed the deadly encounter between Travis McMichael and Arbery on February 23rd from a vehicle behind a pickup that stopped in the road. Gregory McMichael, who was in the bed of the pickup during the shooting, told police that Bryan had tried to help them stop Arbery earlier, according to an incident report. And that's what I talked about in the video about a week ago when I was talking about the police report and kind of reading that over, trying to get a feel for that McMichael said that William Bryan tried to help them in some way, but he didn't indicate whether he was part of the plan from the beginning. So that's why I was saying there was some difference or some nuance to it. So what I was saying in the video was if Arbery's running one direction and the McMichaels, and again, this is just speculation, again, they get ahead of him, cut him off, or what have you, he turns a different direction and starts running towards Bryan, then it may have looked to the McMichaels like Bryan was trying to help. That's going to be his defense, right? That has to be the argument that no, it wasn't the way it looked, that they misspoke in the police report or they misunderstood it. Where you would have a case against Bryan would be there's witnesses involved. I believe there were 4. We don't have the statements yet as far as I know. We may. But where it looks bad for Bryan is if those individuals could place him and the McMichaels together hatching this plot. Say they were all 3 in the McMichaels' yard when this happened, and the neighbors see them. They see Arbery running down the road after the police were called. They see the 3 of them yelling at Arbery, for instance, and then yelling, "Go get the guns, go get the guns." That definitely would put him in the middle of what ensued and then would lead to a situation where he may be SOL when it comes to getting before that jury down the road. Absent that, again, like I said, I don't know what the witness statements are. Perhaps you know if those are out there, let me know. You need to have evidence of them working together, and that would be clear evidence. The prosecution is going to want to find something to tie them 3 together to this prosecution for their part of it. They're going to want to find a way to tie the 3 of them together to this plot or this plan. That's where the witnesses are key, and that's what I was saying in the video before, where I was talking about the police report. And then I was talking about the interview that William Bryan gave. I was saying, hey, based on the interview, it seems like maybe he was just an innocent bystander in all of this. And of course I said that based on the information we have at this time, because you always have to qualify it. New stuff always comes out. But what I was saying in that video also was that we want to hear from the witnesses. The witnesses are the key to this, in my opinion, when it comes to Bryan. The witnesses play some role, obviously, when it comes to the McMichaels as well. But to me, that's more of kind of a strict, pretty straightforward legal argument there. Did they have the right to begin the pursuit to begin with? That's the way I see it so far. But in the case of Bryan, it really has to do with the witnesses. Do they put him there, placing him in cahoots with this plan to go after Arbery, or was he really just an individual who thought he was being a good Samaritan and thought he was filming something that he saw that didn't look right? Let's read a little bit more of the article, then I'll kind of give a couple more thoughts and wrap it up. Kevin Go, an attorney for Bryan, who could not be reached Thursday, has said his client committed no crime, was no vigilante, and would be the state's star witness. He told CNN last week that Bryan was working in his yard when he saw a person he did not know being chased by a vehicle he recognized from the neighborhood. Bryan spoke to CNN's Fredo Cuomo on May 11th, and he said he prays for the Arbery family every night. He said of the video, "I hope that it, in the end, brings justice to the family and peace to the family." The attorneys representing members of the Arbery family said they were relieved. "We called for his arrest from the very beginning of the process," said a bunch of individuals I don't really care about. His involvement in the murder, I always like to do those air quotes because they're already calling it a murder before the trial's even begun. We've got to wait, right? Like it or not, we just have to wait until the jury gets it and before the case is even put on. So his involvement in the murder of Mr. Arbery was obvious to us, to many around the country, and after their thorough investigation, it was clear to the GBI as well. They thanked the GBI for its diligence. All right, you get the gist of it. I'll leave that here up on the screen if you want to finish reading the article. I'll link it, of course, in the description so you can go ahead and read that archived article if you're not familiar with it. A final thought I had on this, and I kind of gave my explanation as far as how each side would have to pursue their case. Now, again, I'm no lawyer. Just from a common sense standpoint, again, if you're the attorney for Bryan, you want to be saying, no, there's no evidence. I was just doing a good deed. I saw something that looked fishy. I went to shoot it and see what would happen. If you're on the prosecution side, though, that's where the witnesses would come in. If the witnesses aren't putting him in a situation where he's cooperating or in cahoots with the McMichaels in some way, then there goes your case out the window, I believe. And that's for each side to kind of argue that in court. But a couple things that I'm thinking about. I'm wondering if this in some way, again, I don't know how it could be when I'm thinking through this, but I wonder if this is just some way of trying to get Bryan to cooperate somehow. That they don't really see him as an individual who's really tied to the murder in any way. And they are trying to charge him with murder and entrapment. But can you imagine that? In the end, can you imagine if there were no witnesses that could tie him in any way to the McMichaels? And the thing that gets him in trouble was just the McMichaels thinking he was trying to help. That there was no way, that he was in no way involved in it, but he gets run through the legal ringer. I mean, can you imagine if you're sitting there and you witness something, that you're witnessing this incident happen before your eyes and you have no idea what's going on with it, and you're like, oh, let me shoot this, right? Let me see where this leads. And then somehow they come back on you as part of it because of something somebody said in a police report, some kind of misunderstanding. If it was in fact that, that's what I say, that's what the legal process will prove once it plays out. It makes you, if it goes down that way, can you imagine if it goes down that way that it turns out they were charging him with this and they bring these charges against him and it goes that far? Can you imagine the field day his attorneys are going to have suing the state? But again, that's that side of it. Okay, so we've talked about that. Now from the prosecution side, again, like I said, it's all about the witnesses to me. What do you think about it? You could have the McMichaels saying this one thing, but I really think you have to have these witnesses tying them together, these three individuals together, saying, hey, let's go get him. That's how you rope him into it. And I think that's how the prosecution would try to tie him into it, to try to demonstrate to the jury his involvement. Like I said, I'm no lawyer. Most of you probably aren't, but you just think through these things logically. I'm sure there's a ton of legal scholars out there who like to give their opinion, but without these witness statements, we just don't know. So I'm not willing to say one way or another without hearing those statements, whether he was involved or not. But I'll tell you one thing. For all three of these guys, obviously for the Arbery family, him, for Ahmaud, their lives will never be the same. And I said this in my other video. These three guys' lives will never be the same. Even if they got off, even if the charges were dropped, the jury didn't find them guilty of murder, Bryan never gets convicted of anything, it's a mistake. All people involved, their lives are never going to be the same. As I said before when I was talking about an individual who commented on my videos, Sherry, I was saying, the only thing we can hope from this is that people learn that there's a time and a place for this kind of activity, right? The time and place being somebody gets into your car, tries to take your stuff, somebody comes into your house, somebody tries to beat your wife, somebody tries to steal your kid, a rapist you see coming into your house, killer, that's the time where you want that gun, and that's the time where you shoot first and ask questions later. you just really hope that people learn from this and they don't put themselves in these situations on either side. Whether you're saying Ahmaud was committing crime or not, whether he had in the past or not, I don't care about that. Whether you're arguing that McMichaels were right or wrong to give chase, if you're giving me legal opinion, I just don't want your opinion. Give me legal opinion. Whatever you're trying to argue, I just hope that individuals learn from this. And again, this is a rare situation where we read about stuff like this, but I just hope that people learn from this and people don't put themselves in that situation where this would happen. And that's everybody involved, in any case. So I don't want to see individuals, and we're talking about everybody involved. I don't want to see them have their lives ruined like this over something, because to me it wasn't one of those situations like I described. Now, I'm not saying that I agree legally or not with what happened. I'm still waiting on all of the facts, but I just don't want to see people getting caught in these situations, that's all. Because what good comes of it, right? Nothing. That said, everybody, take care out there. I hope you're doing well. Thanks for watching the video, everybody. Have a good day.